I'm Abby Heber, and I'm responding to the discussion post on how is Western civilization relevant to today. When I first got this prompt, I was very excited because I love the topic, but I was a little bit daunted on how to succinctly define Western civilization when there's so much from it, art, literature, music, individual expression, curiosity. So I felt very akin to the thoughts in the definition of Lawrence Birken, or the struggle with the definition of Lawrence Birken in his work What is Western Civilization, when he wrote, aiming for a mass following, the textbook writer seeks to please as many people as possible by using vague language and speaking in generalities. Another historian, Robert Royle, added a refreshingly succinct definition, stating, whatever it may mean, Western civilization is the primary culture here, meaning America, and in Europe. So I went on to understand Western civilization as this accumulation of human thought throughout time, and the evolving of thought throughout time, resulting in a culture of shared ideas that we have today. And one of the most beautiful parts, I think, of Western civilization is the access that we have now to conclusionary thoughts of these thinkers of old, from Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, to Immanuel Kant, to Rene Descartes, to Abelard and Eloise, Nietzsche. All these folks, we have been given the gift of these actualized thoughts, and these thoughts have been tested over time. They've been put into practice. They've been made into ethics. These ethics have been integrated into society and created a framework that holds true to what I perceive as biblical principles of morality and truth, good versus evil. But the secular interpretation of Western culture is highly relevant as well, because without some kind of fundamental structure to lean on, society as a whole, be it secular or not, will devolve into a sense of anarchy and this desire for instantaneous gratification. Therefore, I see Western culture not as one succinct definition, but more of an accumulative expression of centuries of thought. To look back on the words of Royle, he said that a civilization is an elaborate structure of ideas and institutions, slowly built up over time by the intelligence and effort of countless individuals working alone and together. If we fail to understand and live out that complexity, which tries to answer to the complexity of human life itself, we can easily fall back to the less human existence. So this kaleidoscope of culture that we have now referred to as Western civilization is more important today, I believe, than in times of the past. Possibly because we have reached this very shaky ground of what is truth, trying to define it. Unfortunately, it seems that the more we become a society of anything goes, with truth morphing into a fluid, case-by-case, person-by-person interpretation, we actually become the very thing that we're trying to get away from, and that is having a sense of individual meaning and worth. Now, this goes on to many other kind of lengthy philosophical thoughts and quandaries, but I'm just going to use the example of my Winthrop University students. And with my ethics students, when I see them trying to alter truth and fit it into their narrative, what I really see them doing is trying to find a sense of meaning and worth from a humanistic standpoint, which, as Royle states, will send us back to a less human existence. So on the large scale, neglecting the literature and culture from Western thinkers will result in a lack of ethical structure in modern society. But the more intimate negative outcome, this is what I like to look at, each person, each soul at a time, is the lack of meaning and purpose that individuals will be left with. In his work, How Then Should We Live? The Rise and Decline of Western Thought and Culture, Francis Schaeffer writes that the ironic fact here is that humanism, which began with man's being central, eventually had no real meaning for people. On the other hand, if one begins with the biblical position that man is created by God and in the image of God, there is a basis for that person's dignity. If I had to summarize the effects of Western civilization in a visual representation, the painting by Jacques-Louis David arrests my thoughts immediately. It shows Socrates willingly dying for the freedom of thought, seeking of truth, and corrupting the youth of Athens by imploring them to think on their own. This is why Western civilization is relevant today. It implores us to think, it structures society, and it brings definitions to life having meaning, to our life having meaning. Should we glean from these thinkers of old out of respect for their thoughts? Yes, sure, absolutely. But more so out of fear of what we could become if we refuse to heed from the wise minds of old these tested and tried thoughts, these conclusions, these conclusionary thoughts. The foreword of Reflections on Ancient and Modern Freedom, author Alexander Rosenthal begins this work with a quote from Edmund Burke. The quote reads, "What is liberty without virtue and wisdom? It is the greatest of all possible evils, for it is folly, vice, and madness." Western civilization and the culture that it birthed is not only relevant today, it's vital to today's society, perhaps now more than ever, in an era when truth seems like a suggested idea based fully on the interpretation of each individual rather than the fixed, knowable function of human understanding. So that is my case for why Western civilization is relevant to today's society. I look forward to hearing and reading discussion posts from everyone else. Thank you.